Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Let me start by sharing my screen. As Chris mentioned, I am here to talk about Tableau Catalog, why it's just such an awesome tool that's part of Tableau's product suite. But I'm going to talk, before I kind of dive into Tableau Catalog, I do kind of take a moment to introduce myself, like who am I and why am I here talking about this? As Chris already mentioned, right, I'm a super fan of Tableau. I'm data analytics manager at a financial services firm. I'm actually in IT, so one of my roles, one of my many roles that I play is actually our Tableau server administrator. And then because I love Tableau so much, I want everyone else to love Tableau. I also help to lead our center of practice around Tableau. And my goal really through all of my work is to try to help people realize the value of Tableau and get their hands on data as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And I think Tableau Catalog, it's a product that Tableau has, and it kind of helps with, well, as you'll see, it helps with a lot of kind of little things that surround and support your data visualizations or your dashboard experience, whether you're an end user or a data governance professional or a Tableau server admin or a data domain owner, or whatever role it is that you're playing, Tableau Catalog is actually pretty valuable. So that's kind of who I am by day. In my free time, Tableau is also my hobby. So I lead 2 Tableau user groups. Very, honored, I think, through my efforts there to have been recognized as a Tableau ambassador, which is really cool. And if that weren't enough, during the pandemic, I was really missing the networking and interaction of the in-person events. And so I was like, let's also start up a data book club to really help facilitate conversations between people. And then, the Data Careers Summit as well. So that one came about last year because I felt like I was getting the same questions, which is like, data is really cool. How do I get a job in data? What skills do I need to have? And I really wanted to help answer those questions for more than just like the people that were reaching out to me directly, but on a broader scale. Honestly, I thought that event, like I was planning on it being like a one-time event. I thought maybe it would be like a user group meeting style, 1 hour. And it ended up being a 3-hour event that we did last August. It went so well. We did it again in February, and now we're doing it again in September. So I didn't really realize at the time I was signing myself up for like this massive undertaking, but it's been so successful. I think people are really interested in it. So that's the Data Career Summit. If you're kind of interested in that, check us out on LinkedIn. We've got a LinkedIn page. But yeah, we're going to have another event in September, and Tableau plays a big part in that too, obviously. So I do have other hobbies, though. I've got 2 dogs. I have a motorcycle, which I really, enjoy riding that to like state parks and stuff. That's about it. I like being outdoors. I like, being with my dogs and exploring nature and stuff and taking my bike. So,
Randy, have you explored the Indiana Dunes National Park yet?
I have not. No.
Just got upgraded in like 2020 to be a full-fledged national park.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
I have to check that out. Yeah. I'm kind of excited. I got my motorcycle a few years ago. I've had one in the past, but it's been a while, and it's one of those things I've really just enjoyed and wanted to get back to. And so, I bought another bike, and I thought it was like a good kind of like combination goal. Like, let me ride my bike more, but let me also visit like state parks and national parks and stuff. So I'll put that one on the list. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah.
But motorcycles and state parks is likely not why you're here. Let's talk a little bit more about Tableau and Tableau Catalog specifically. here's my agenda. So I think there's like lots of things that come with Tableau Catalog. But these are kind of like the themes or the categories that they fall into. So we're going to talk about lineage and impact. We're going to talk about field descriptions or like a business glossary type of thing. We're going to talk about data quality warnings and something called the data details pane. So we're going to talk about all of these things. Like I said at the beginning, there's something for everyone, whether you are creating dashboards and visualizing your data for yourself or for others, there's something there. If you are data governance and you care about like lineage and impact, for example, where data is coming from and where it's going to, if you're a server admin and you care about like making sure people are aware if there's an issue with data, like there's something for everyone. Before I actually jump into, so this was pretty much it for my slides. We'll come back to these at the end. We're going to jump right in and actually look at Tableau Catalog within, in all the places where it kind of is exposed to you. But before I do that, I just kind of want to level set on what Tableau Catalog is in terms of like Tableau's product suite. So you're all probably familiar with Tableau Desktop, right? The tool you can use to build your Tableau reports and things. Tableau Prep is a tool, an application that you can use to, prepare your data, most likely for visualization in Tableau Desktop. You have Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud. They're very similar. One is hosted on-prem, one is hosted by Tableau in the cloud. And then you have like additional add-ons. So there's something called the server management add-on. I'm not super familiar with that. Then they have one called the data management add-on. And the data management add-on comes with two things. One is something called Tableau Prep Conductor, which allows you to schedule and automate your Tableau prep flows. And then the other component is Tableau Catalog. And so that very small, narrow portion of Tableau's product suite is what I'm here to talk about today. But as I did kind of mention, it is an add-on, so it does cost extra. It's not just something you get out of the box when you have Tableau Cloud or you have Tableau Server. So just something to note. I don't feel like the cost escapes me, but I felt like it was reasonable. And personally for me, it's paid for itself. So, but just know that when you get all excited about everything I'm about to share and tell you, just know that it's likely not something, unless you already have Tableau with data management add-on, you may have to actually make an additional purchase for some of these things. Heads up. Okay, with that, I'm going to jump into Tableau Cloud, where we're actually going to look at some of these components. Now, I will say I'm a huge fan of questions and interactivity. So if you have any questions or comments, I would say use the chat, use the Q&A if it's available. I'm a big fan of kind of just getting that feedback from you. So if you know already, if you have the data management add-on, throw it in the chat. I'd love to hear whether this is something you're already familiar with or something that you already have. But while you do that, I'm going to jump right in. We're going to talk about a little bit more about Tableau Catalog. So I'm going to switch over to Tableau Cloud. So this is a developer instance of Tableau Cloud. It's just kind of my own little personal sandbox. And right now I'm on a page for a workbook. And on this, so if you didn't have Tableau, or if you didn't have Tableau Catalog, you would still see views and data sources and metrics and custom views and extract refreshes and subscriptions. You'd see all of these tabs. But Tableau Catalog gives you this additional lineage tab. Okay, so this lineage tab is going to be available for every like workbook, every published data source. If you have like a lens on your data source, or even on your flows, really most objects that are published in Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud will now have this lineage tab. So when we click on that lineage tab, on the right-hand side, there's like this little lineage like flow diagram almost. And essentially the workbook that we're on right now is highlighted in blue, and we can see looking up this lineage like flow diagram here, we can see that this workbook, the data in this workbook comes from 4 tables that are all part of one database. Okay, so, and then we can also see kind of going downstream that this workbook is comprised of 7 sheets, 1 dashboard, 3 metrics, and 1 owner. So the lineage and the lineage capability here comes right out of the box, and you're able essentially to travel up and down this path. So I can click on databases and see what database is essentially, you know, underlying this workbook. And in this case, it's something called Tableau Resume, which is actually a Google Sheet. And in that Google Sheet, we have 4 tables, or like basically like sheets within Google Sheet, a single Google Sheet document. So we have 4 tables, and then we can like look at any one of these things: dashboards, metrics, owners, etc. So you can kind of just click around and see where's this data for this workbook coming from and where is it going. Okay. So that's that lineage and impact kind of component. And you know what's kind of cool is for this particular workbook, right, there are 4 data sources, and I can see them all right here. What's kind of interesting is, you know, on some of these views here within the lineage section, there are bits that have checkboxes. So if I'm kind of interested in, let's say for whatever reason, something is wrong with my activity category field, I can click on it, and now I get like almost like a little updated, like little bar charts almost. So I can see that this one field is used in one of the 7 sheets included in this workbook. It's used in all 3 of the metrics. And so like, I think that's really cool, because then you can kind of see, okay, this field isn't used at all. But you can just kind of, for any data source, you can actually see what things will be impacted if this field changes. So I'm a big fan of that. Okay. What's also really great is, like, let's say this is a published data source. You'll have the same experience. But let's say, okay, you have a published data source, and there are, you know, let's say 4 different workbooks that use that data source. And you need to make a change to your data source, so you want to notify everybody. You can select any of the fields that might be changing, and you can then go to the Owners tab. So these would be the people who own content that are impacted by this event category field. I can click them. In this case, there's only one, it's just me, but you could select everybody, and you could send them an email right from Tableau to say, by the way, I'm making a change to the logic on this calculated field, or this data source is changing in some way, and you are going to be impacted. So that is lineage and impact via Tableau catalog. So the next thing I want to talk about are field descriptions. So when I was on, you know, kind of this workbook view and looking at the embedded data sources here, in my case, the data sources are embedded. We can see that fields have descriptions. This is actually not a feature of Tableau Catalog, but Tableau Catalog makes it easier to expose these bits of information. So the field descriptions are actually already available to you if you have Tableau. This is not something you need to pay extra for, but Tableau Catalog, like I said, exposes them a little bit more. So field descriptions can be seen on the Lineage tab, like we see here. They can be seen in Ask Data if you use that feature at all, and they can even be seen in Tableau Desktop. That's actually the place that I usually create these definitions. I believe that you can change them on like published data sources. I think you can add field descriptions when they're already published. I do think that there's also options to integrate like a third-party tool that has business glossary definitions, there is a way to integrate that into your Tableau Cloud or Tableau server environment. I haven't done that, so I can't really speak to that, but I know that there are some partnerships there. So the way I do it is a little bit more manual, it's a little bit more hands-on, and it's done in Tableau Desktop. So I'm going to show you what that experience looks like real quick. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to Tableau Desktop. This is the same workbook that we were just looking at. I just have this like very boring setup tab here. These are the 4 data sources that we were just looking at in Tableau Cloud. And on any one of these fields here, if you, well, hover over them, the definition pops right up here. So if you are, using a data source that has definitions baked right into them, you'll see them when you hover over that field in the data pane right within Tableau Desktop. To create the definition, you'll actually right-click on the field. Under default properties, you go to comment, and this little text box that pops up, you can type in your definition. And this is the way I do it. But again, there are probably many ways that you can get to the same end result. What's kind of crazy to me is that it's called field definitions in Tableau Cloud, but here it's like default properties and comment. So I feel like maybe that, that naming convention should be standardized, but because you wouldn't necessarily know to go to comment to fill in that information, but that's how you get to it. So not only do they appear, these field definitions appear in your data pane, but if you were to be like looking at one of these, one of like a sheet that already has, that's already built, and you hover over one of these fields, you would also see that definition right within your view as well. So I think that's pretty handy. If you're like somebody who's responsible for, maybe owning a data domain or a data asset or a data source or something, putting those field definitions in will help anybody who uses it, right? Know more about what does this field mean. So I'm a big fan. Okay, so that is field descriptions. We're actually going to see them a little bit later. Like I said, they're kind of already something that you can use, but Tableau Catalog exposes them in a lot of ways. So we'll actually see it a little bit later as well. But I'm going to jump back to Tableau Cloud, and I'm next going to talk about quality warnings. So with quality warnings, we actually see these with published data sources. So I'm going to navigate to a published data source here. And again, this is a published data source. I can see that lineage tab just like we saw in the workbook. But the data quality warnings are actually something that you can apply to a published data source, and you'll get to them by clicking these 3 dots here. And there's a quality warning section right here. Now you can only do this if you're the owner of the data source or if you're a admin of some kind. So there are 2 types of quality warnings. One is called quality warning, and the other is extract refresh monitoring. They're very similar. There are some differences, but they're very similar. The main difference is that quality warnings are set manually, whereas the extract refresh monitoring warnings are automatically like enabled. That's really the biggest issue, the biggest differentiator. So if I click on quality warning, this button right here is how you enable it, right? So we'll enable it manually. There's different types of like warnings, I suppose, or different labels. So it can just be a warning. You can say, hey, this is being deprecated, like this data source is ultimately going away. It could be stale data, like let's say our data vendor didn't provide us the data today. I may want to come out here and let everybody who's relying on this data source know the data may be stale because we didn't get it, right? Maybe it's under maintenance. Maybe we are making some changes to the calculated fields, or maybe we're upgrading the underlying system and we want people to know this is under maintenance. Or maybe this data contains sensitive information about, maybe you work in healthcare, and there's HIPAA regulations, or maybe, there's other sensitivities around this data. It has client information, or it has like salary information or something, I'm not really sure. You can, there's probably a lot of different interpretations of sensitive data. But anyway, you can select a type here. And then there are two types of visibility. Standard visibility, where it's just kind of like there, like you have to be in Tableau Desktop, or you have to be looking at the data source page like we are here, or those are kind of like the two big ones. We'll see this later actually in the data details pane. The other option is high visibility. And essentially what will happen here is when your dashboard goes to be rendered, you'll see a banner across the top that says, warning, this data is stale, or this data maybe contains sensitive information, whatever it is. It'll also appear in subscriptions. So if you have this data source and let's say it refreshes every day at 9 a.m. and then every day at 9:30, a bunch of subscriptions are sent out. But let's say we didn't get the data from our vendor in time. So the data that's being sent out at 9:30 might be stale. If I go and I set this data quality warning in the email, it'll tell people right away, you might be looking at stale data here. So you select your visibility level and then you add a message. I like to keep it short and sweet, a sentence or two. It really just describes the problem, what could be impacted, when it might be resolved, and who to contact with questions or something. And then, yeah, you set the warning. You just will hit save once you have all that filled out. So that's the data quality warning. Very similarly, the extract refresh monitoring. This one is set up. You can enable it. You still have to enable it, but once it's enabled, the warning itself will be activated when the refresh fails. So if you have a extract refresh set up on your published data source, it's probably just best practice to turn this on automatically. So if that extract refresh fails, this warning will just be visible to everybody. So a little bit more simplistic here, but generally the same idea. All right.
That one feels like it should just be default.
I know, you're not wrong. Absolutely. But yeah, so this one, I think, just internally where I'm trying to tell people about it, like go out and just turn this on, like it's so easy. The other thing I actually try to do, and that I've done this for some other things, but I like templates. Like, here's the 2 sentences that I think you should have for your message, but like fill in these 2 blanks or these 3 blanks, This way people don't have to start from scratch, but like, yeah, anyway. So I'm a big, I don't know why this isn't just automatically turned on. I agree. Sorry, you guys are writing in the chat and I love it. I'm just reading it. Okay, good. We have some people here who are already, Tableau catalog users. They've talked about lineage. Yeah, so as a developer, right, I do, while I'm a Tableau server admin, I also develop stuff, or I help people, or I help manage data sources. And so sometimes I'll have like let's be honest. I don't mean to like pick on, you know, our business folks, our business analysts, but we've probably all been in that situation where like, what kind of data, like how many fields do you want? Like what fields do you want? And the answer is always all of them. And then, you know, 6 months go by and you realize like only a third or a quarter are actually used. And it's much more performant for everyone, for storage, for compute, for, you know, rendering the viz or refreshing that data source, right? It's all can be faster if we limit the fields that we're putting into a data source. And so I actually really like the lineage tab because it makes it so easy for me to know where is this field being used? Is it being used at all? And I can just come in here and say, I can hide this field and I can hide this field and I can hide this field, you know? So I really like lineage for that reason. I've seen, you know, data governance folks be like, hey, we noticed an issue with this, or like we have a question about this field, or there's an issue with it. Where's it being used? And I can literally say like nowhere. So really easy, I think for that reason. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about quality warnings. I mentioned that they are visible on our data source landing page. So here I have one already set up. This one is under maintenance. And if I click on it, I can see who set it, when they set it, and then like whatever message they left. This was just set up as an example. We can also see this in Tableau Desktop. So I'm going to jump right back over there. Here we have this data source and we have this little blue exclamation point. And when I click on this, I get that same information that we just saw in Tableau Cloud. So it was set by Brandy on this date. Here's the message. So, right, so I've already shared some examples, I think, too, of how it could be used. But if you have any that, you know, like this is the awesome thing about user groups, right? Like, yes, I've used Tableau Catalog and I've written a blog post about it and I'm sharing this, but we all have our own experiences and perspectives on this. And I think user groups are such a great way to kind of share knowledge, share and brainstorm. So if you have any ideas of ways that these things would be impactful or useful, I would definitely encourage you to share them so that we can all get like super hyped up together about Tableau Catalog.
Yeah, Brandy, I'm almost a little upset you're presenting this because now anytime I go to a client that doesn't have it, I'm going to be so frustrated.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you also have some, you know, attendees in here who have used it and have been wanting to use Catalog and have not been able to yet. So this will be interesting. I can unmute people here if you want to open it up. Are you at a position, Brandy? Did you want to get some interaction or you want to keep going?
There was one other bit that I just wanted to cover, and then we can maybe do some questions.
Yeah, we're not, there's no fire here, so take your time.
Cool, awesome. The last thing, so we've talked about lineage, we've talked about those field definitions and the quality warnings. The last thing that I want to point out that Tableau Catalog kind of offers is more from an end user or consumer's perspective. So like everything we've kind of looked at so far has probably been helpful for developers or data governance professionals or your Tableau server admins. But if you are just somebody who's using the results of an analysis, there is also a way that all of this stuff benefits you. So in Tableau Cloud or Tableau Server, you render your kind of visualization or your dashboard. There is a data details button. Mine is over here on the left. Some older versions of Tableau, it's going to be on the right. But if you click on that, it opens up this pane on the right-hand side. Now, I'm really sorry for this weird overlap right here. This is a result of having a beta version of Tableau Cloud. But essentially what this data pane gives us is one, a view of the, like how often this dashboard's been viewed, who's the owner of it and when it was last updated, and all of the data sources included in here, as well as when they were last refreshed. I can't tell you how much just this alone would help people answer their own questions, or help end users answer their own questions about data. Can't tell you how many times I've had people ask me like, oh, how recent is this data, or when it was last updated, or who owns this? All of this information kind of answers that question. Okay, down below, it's kind of hard to see, but this list right here, you can kind of see it best at the bottom. This list is all of the fields that are used on this dashboard. And then if I wanted to, so I'm looking at event date, that actually corresponds to this little like events section down here at the bottom. If I'm interested in what that is, I can expand that and see the definitions right here. So that's the date when this event took place, which that one kind of makes sense. There is a field, you can't really see it, but it's called end date or present. And I can see that it's a calculated field. I'm sorry again for the overlap. But what's really cool about this is it actually, I'm going to zoom out slightly so you can see more of it, but it gives me a description. So it's the month and year when activity ended. And if the activity is ongoing, the word present is returned. And the reason that that's helpful is when I like look at, you know, this is my resume, obviously. When I look at my, you know, professional history, here is the Milwaukee Tableau user group. And it started in March 2015 and it's ongoing, so it's still present. So that's the description for this field, but I can even see the calculation. Because this is a calculated field, I can actually, as an end user, see the logic that underlies this. So I'm actually going to open this up so it's a little bit easier to then see, but we can see the calculation. So again, this is all now being exposed to our end users so that they can actually understand the analysis that's taking place. So if you have like well-named fields, written calculations with like good documentation and commenting, all of that can help your end users understand what's happening here. So this is just the calculation that underlies this particular field. So that's the data details pane. That comes with Tableau Catalog. Again, it's the perfect place to present all of this really pertinent information to your end users. I know we talked about how like that data quality warning should be enabled kind of by default. I think the data details pane should open automatically by default, as well as the comment pane, obviously, honestly, but regardless, I think that this pane is really cool. If there are any data quality issues with these data sources, I don't know, stand by. I'm going to refresh because I should probably give the devs some feedback on this little beta version. But if there were any data quality issues with these data sources, it would also show up in the data pane. So that was just the last bit that I wanted to comment on. I'm going to jump back to my presentation real quick, my slide deck. There's a few more things I wanted to mention, and then I would love to talk more about this or answer any questions. So we covered all of these things. This is kind of like maybe a little handy takeaway. I'll share this with Chris and Danny, and if they want to disseminate it or share it with you, you know, they'll have the ability to do so. I wrote, most of my presentations come from me writing blog posts, so I actually have a lot of this written out in these 2 blog posts. So just links there if you kind of want to follow along or have it as a resource for later. And the last thing I want to mention is the Data Book Club. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like salesy. I honestly shouldn't even call it a sales pitch because I gain nothing from this. I lose money on the Data Book Club. But as a Tableau user group leader during the pandemic, I was really missing the interaction and like talking with people. You pair that with the fact that I feel like I kept buying data books, but never really finding the motivation to read them. And so I was like, this seems like a nice combo. Let's pick a data related book, let's read it, and then let's come together to talk about it. And so that's essentially what the Data Book Club is. If that is your jam, I would love to have you come. It's always virtual. You can kind of like choose to participate as much as you want. You can just participate on Slack. You can sign up and never come. You can attend every book that we read, or you can like just read the next book. I'm not really, like however much you want. You're responsible for buying the book. And if you want to show up in whatever capacity, you can. This is actually the perfect time to join as well, because we're about to start our spring book, which we haven't even picked it yet. So we're about to pick it and get together and talk about it. It's not Tableau specific either. It's kind of just data related. So that is the book club. But thank you all so much for your time today and letting me come and nerd out about Tableau Catalog. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, I mean, you should be networking whatever you want. I mean, we are all data people at heart. So, I mean, this is one of those things where I'm like, of course, you should be, feel free. We have a platform. You've been gracious enough to present. You're welcome back here anytime. So what I'd like to do is, Danny or Ryan, if you have anything to add, I was going to open up the floor to the questions here. So see if I can do this correctly. Oh, you're on mute, Danny.
Thank you. I tested it with Ryan, and it looks like if you do presenter mode on, they should have the ability to talk if they want to.
Okay, so I will. The dang shame I can't do this as a bulk, but I will go one by one.
And there's no pressure to talk, everyone. And thank you for bearing with us as we learn this brand new tool. We're the first people in the United States to have a user group using Bevy. So I don't know how we won that award, but
we are the guinea pigs that successfully were managed to get off of that little wheel that doesn't go anywhere. So I'm in the process of taking you all into presentation mode so you all can talk. So I know there's been some chat here in the chat. So the chat has been quite active. So please feel free to ask a question, Shannon, anybody, please. This is a discussion for everybody. So does anybody have any questions?
Well, I was going back through the chat because I know people were saying, commenting things, and I appreciate all that. And I just thought, I'm not sure if these questions were answered, but there was one from Shannon a while back. Have you been able to use Lineage to help identify published data source dependencies or inform published data source deprecation? Well, the dependencies, yes, absolutely. So a published data source, you go to it, you look at the Lineage tab, and you can see everything that's using it downstream. The deprecation, I mean, maybe not so much. I think what I would use there, I mean, I guess it depends on how you would define deprecation, but like if you're just kind of saying, hey, what published data sources are out there that's not used by anything? If you just are on the Explore page and you look at all your data sources, you can see how many workbooks are built off of that data source. And you look at anything that's zero, that's one of the ways I would solve it. I'm also currently on Tableau server, so I have access to the Tableau repository that lives behind that, and I can see which data sources have usage and which ones don't. I'm a big fan of that.
Me too.
What does everybody else think? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm involved in a project where we're doing a migration from on-prem to AWS, and not just that, but a Tableau upgrade, and not just that, but trying to do an audit. So never can be easy. It's always just said, let's turn the faucet on completely. So understanding what data sources are being used will help us to decide what to migrate. So those numbers are critically important. So that being able to see that at the server level, absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, I only read the first half of the comment, because then she says, currently our published data sources show connected workbooks, but not connected published prep flows. So yes, I think Lineage would help you identify the flows that are impacted by that. But I should say, I don't know that much about Tableau prep. So I'm not sure how Tableau prep and like a published Tableau data source ultimately get related within Tableau server.
I would imagine that's pretty hard for it to kind of talk between prep and like where it's coming from in prep and the output. Okay. But it could. And I know they're working pretty hard on making Tableau prep more web friendly. So it's more of a software as a service.
Right. Well, and that kind of goes really well into Ryan's comment, which is that Lineage seems much better at downstream than upstream.
I do want to rescind part of that comment, though. I'm poking around in server right now, and it's weird because I'm if I hit the Lineage from a published data source that comes out of Tableau, a Tableau prep conductor flow, it doesn't tell me what's upstream of that there was Tableau prep flows. Though if I go to Lineage from the Tableau prep flow, which you can do that as well, navigate to there from the flow, then it tells you everything that's downstream of that. So it seems to know that there's a Tableau prep flow somewhere in the process, but it seems like how you get to that information might be a little wonky, or maybe you just have to do it from the Tableau prep flow.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Thank you for sharing. Something else that comes with Tableau Catalog is something called external assets. And the idea there is that it kind of gives you, as an admin or maybe like a creator or something, the ability to look at all data assets across your server or across your site. And what I will say is I haven't explored that really much in depth. But I think it kind of actually supports what you were saying about the ability to kind of go upstream. Like, I think it's really hard, especially if you use like hyper files or, Excel files they're not traditional like databases and tables and things. So I haven't explored it very much. I think I get where they're going. We'll see, how it maybe improves over time, or maybe I just need to name my data sources better or something. I don't really know. So I haven't explored that bit yet, but it seems interesting. So then just reading Shannon's, I'm sorry, I'm catching up on the chat apparently. So.
No, you're good. You're good.
Also
yeah, go ahead, Danny.
I was just going to say, for the attendees, I just learned before this meeting that if you chat someone else during this, so if you DM someone, that's going to be saved for future calls. It doesn't get deleted.
Brandy, I was just going to say thank you for the overview here. I, like Danny, just work amongst a multitude of clients, and so when sometimes I see Tableau a catalog as a part of, they have the data management add-on, or sometimes they don't. But my job is so much easier when the data management add-on is there, and I can use lineage especially. But you've gone over some features that I didn't even know about, didn't even think to use. So some of the like description part of the metadata, and then that data details pane. I've honestly never clicked on that button before. I didn't know it was in there.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, I know. And that's, I think the cool thing is like, even as somebody who's going around giving this presentation, like there are definitely things in here I don't know about either, and so I feel like every time I walk away having learned something from you all, like, so I really appreciate the commentary, the feedback. It's all been really helpful, but yeah, it's kind of cool when it works right and it looks nice. Usually, I mean, too, that's a lot of information to contain in that little space on the side. Usually there's a scroll bar, but obviously that whole bit is wonky right now. So the version that I have in production doesn't look like that. So that's good news, I guess. But yeah, I do like that. I think it has changed, like the data details has changed the way I name my fields now. Like sometimes sometimes I think there's people out there who have like a school of thought, like I'm going to name anything that's a table calc with like a TC underscore whatever, or they'll kind of like prefix like certain fields with something to kind of indicate that they're a calculated field or that they're for a parameter or like whatever, I've never really been that kind of person, probably because I'm just lazy. But I think when you now know that those field names are going to be exposed to your end users, like it changes how you name them so that they are, they make sense, or they're, people can just kind of easily find them. Calculations too. I add comments now to every calculated field. I didn't really do that before, but I definitely do that now because now I know that these things are exposed to end users. And so even though it's a little bit maybe more work for me up front, now I just say to people when they come and ask me questions, I'm just like, did you click on the data details button and read? Did you take a look at that first? Yeah. But that's, that kind of culture shift is also always, some, like you have to socialize the data details pane. You have to tell people about it. So if anybody has tips on how to make that easy, let me know.
It's what I like about the data details is that I wonder how much time in my life I've spent in all my, the years of Tableau development, sending screenshots of calculated fields when a downstream user is like, can you tell me the logic behind this? And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just send you a screenshot of this thing, but I'm not exactly, it would be really great if you could just, click somewhere on the dashboard and see that. And, oftentimes we develop the logic somewhere in an info part of the dashboard, but this is just a little bit more direct. But I definitely agree with you, Brandy. I feel a little, when I noticed that was there, I feel a little exposed. All of the, probably not great naming conventions that I've been using, or at least I have been thinking about public consumption of some of the field names here. Yeah, a little embarrassed now.
Don't be. I've showed you a very like prepared example. So don't be at all. It takes a lot of work to go back and have to like re-engineer. I mean, there's a reason that we did those things to begin with, right? And this is just another step in that evolution. I think I've been asked in the past, like, where do you decide to spend time? Like, it's not really worth going through and defining every field, but which ones do I get asked about the most, right? And I'll define those. Or which ones maybe aren't straightforward, or aren't like a common thing that everybody at my organization just already knows about. Those will be the ones that I define. So yeah, it's about balance, or like doing it especially for published data sources that like are used by a lot of people or used across multiple workbooks, like I'll put a little bit more effort into those.
Yeah.
Can't do it all, yes.
Awesome.
Well, we are right at time. I want to thank you all again for attending. I want to send again a special thanks for Brandy for taking time out of her schedule to speak with us again. Obviously, the door is always open to you. Anytime you want to come on, just let us know. We'd love to have you back. This recording, we'll figure out a way to get this recording set up, and we'll push it up. We'll give you some time back to your day. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And we will see you next month, May 4th. Okay? Have a good one, everybody. Take care.